بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا وإمامنا وحبيبنا أبي القاسم محمد بن عبد الله وعلى آله وصحبه والتابعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. I praise Allah Almighty and I send prayers and blessings upon Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his noble family, righteous companions, and all those that follow them with the right guidance until the day of judgment. Ameen. Glory be to you, O Allah. No knowledge have we except that which you have taught us. Indeed, you are the all-knowing, the all-wise. My dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I hope everyone is doing well, inshaAllah. We continue with the Tafseer of Surah al-Baqarah. And last time we had begun the long ayah, which we said is a little bit difficult and it needs some concentration and some patience because there are some different opinions of scholars about how to understand it. And this is the ayah of أعوذ من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم واتبعوا ما تتلو الشياطين على ملك سليمان. Okay, it's a long ayah. We finished about half of it. We talked about how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was telling us that when the Jews in particular left their book, they ended up following the magic of the shayateen, of the demons at the time of Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salam. We spoke about this in length. We spoke about how Allah Azza wa Jalla exonerated Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salam. And we spoke about the different narrations that mention how that magic spread, how the demons spread that magic at the time of Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salam. Technically, jazakallah khair, after Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salam died. And we got to the part وَلَكِنَّ الشَّيَاطِينَ كَفَرُوا يُعَلِّمُونَ النَّاسَ السِّحْرَ. We spoke about how they taught magic, the Jews and how they taught magic and how they were known for that. They had a reputation for that, and that continues until today. يعلمون الناس السحر وما أنزل على الملكين ببابل هاروت وماروت. And that which was sent down to the two angels at Babylon, Haroot and Maroot. And we spoke about the different scholarly opinions about that part of the ayah as well. And we said that Wallahu A'lam, the correct opinion is that they taught people magic, يعلمون الناس السحر وما أنزل على الملكين, and that which was sent down upon the two angels. So, two things: the magic in general, and then what was sent down to those two angels, Haroot and Maroot. And we mentioned the opinion of Imam Qatada that there are two types of magic. Okay, he said there are two magics here. That which they were taught in the first place, يُعَلِّمُونَ النَّاسَ السِّحْرَ, and also what was sent down to the two angels in Babylon, Haroot and Maroot. And today we start from there, the story of Haroot and Maroot, because here your head will spin as well. The story of Haroot and Maroot. Of course, we said the correct opinion, Wallahu A'lam, is that they are indeed angels. Even though there are a lot of mufassirin who said otherwise, because they were trying to exonerate the angels from teaching magic. And furthermore, that this was given to them by Allah. وَمَا أُنزِلَ عَلَى الْمَلَكَيْنِ. We mentioned the opinion of Imam al-Tabari and many others that this is all a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah gave it to them as a test. So, and we will get to that part. Haroot and Maroot. Who are they? Is there a story behind them? We mentioned the opinion of Imam Ibn Ishaq and others that Haroot and Maroot's time is way back from before the time of Nuh alayhi salam. So there's a huge time span between the time of Prophet Sulaiman and Al-Malakain bi Babil, Haroot wa Maroot. There are many narrations that give us a story that goes something like this. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created Adam alayhi salam and then sent him down, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed the angels to see what the human beings were doing on earth. So they were amazed. And they said to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, look at everything that they're doing despite all of your blessings upon them, O Allah. So He said to them, if I send you down in a similar way that I sent them, you would do the same. Meaning that obviously Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that case would give them the same desires that human beings have, and would also be subject to the insinuations and whispering of the shaitan and the shayateen for that matter. So the angels chose two of them, Haroot and Maroot, to be sent down. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded them not to worship anyone but Him, not to steal, not to drink, not to commit fornication, not to kill, and so on. The story goes that as they were busy judging between people, a woman came complaining about her husband. And they saw her and they were attracted to her and they desired her. And when they asked her, she said, she refused. She said, until you worship an idol and you drink alcohol. Some narrations mention that they first refused, but eventually they did that in order, وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, to commit fornication with her. So they drank alcohol, they worshipped idols, and they committed fornication. And because someone was passing by that might expose them, they killed him. So the narration mentions that in one day they had done everything that was prohibited upon them. And they are the ones that were shocked by what human beings were doing. Upon that, they taught her words, maybe words of magic that she could say in order to ascend into the heavens. And when she made her ascent into the heavens, she forgot the words that would bring her back down, and therefore Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala turned her into a planet or a star. Okay? The narration mentions that her name in Arabic is Zuhra. Okay? The planet that we know, Kawkab al-Zuhra. For them, they were not able to go back and ascend into the heavens. And therefore they stayed on earth and they taught people magic. This is the basic idea of the story behind Haroot and Maroot that you may read in a lot of the books of Tafseer. Of course, scholars had issues with this narration. It smacks clearly of the stories of Bani Israel with a lot of strange things that may lead scholars to say this is weak just based on the content rather than the chain of narration. On the other hand, it has been narrated by many. narrated by some of the Sahaba as well. Ibn Abbas and Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, Abdullah ibn Umar. And of course many of the Tabi'een, like Mujahid and Qatada and As-Suddi and Al-Rabi' and others. Okay? When looking at the many different ways that this was narrated, Imam Ibn Hajar believes that there's some foundation for the story. It's not completely fabricated. Even though scholars of hadith may accuse Ibn Hajar, rahimahullah, of being a little bit easy and flexible when it comes to judging the authenticity of narrations. Ibn Kathir comments on this, and or before that, when you look at the different narrations, you may find that actually when you look at all of them, it's not correct to attribute any of this to the Prophet ﷺ, but possibly to Abdullah ibn Umar radiyallahu anhuma, who took it from whom? Ka'b al-Ahbar, who is of course one of those who came, one of the Jewish scholars who came to Islam, and is known for narrating many of these stories of Bani Israel. So you go this way, you go that way, in the end it seems to be based on the narration of Ka'b al-Ahbar. So it is Israeliyat. In the end it is Israeliyat. And this is why Ibn Kathir says, yes, it has been narrated by many of the Tabi'een, and as I told you, actually even some of the Sahaba. He mentions it has been narrated by many of the Tabi'een, but it is clearly of the Akhbar of Bani Israel. And there is no authentic narration from the one who does not speak of his own volition or of his own desire, the Prophet ﷺ. Nothing is properly and correctly attributed to him. And therefore he says, Allah Azza wa Jal mentions it in brief, without any detail. We believe in it as Allah mentioned it, and we are not obligated to believe that everything else that happened that we just mentioned. And indeed, of course, as you can see, the embellishment in the narration is very clear, right? Furthermore, it does seem to contradict the isma of the malaika in this aspect, that we believe that the angels do not sin or disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Of course, the retort might be of someone who says otherwise is that this was an exception and that Allah made them like the human beings, so it's kind of an exception, Wallahu a'lam. But as we said, when you look at the whole narration, there's a lot there that makes it hard to believe. And this is the difference, subhanallah, between the fabricated narrations and a lot of these embellished stories of Bani Israel and what is actually true and authentic. What is actually true and authentic is usually immediately believable and logical. It's easy to swallow and accept, as opposed to some of these stories. So it seems, wallahu a'lam, that at least the way it has been mentioned is not true. Are they fallen angels, as this narration seems to indicate? Allahu a'lam. Allahu a'lam. Maybe they are fallen angels. Maybe that part is correct, which is that the angels were shocked and Allah allowed them to try it, but maybe without the rest of the details about meeting a woman and killing that man and all of that. Are they fallen angels? Allahu a'lam. It's an issue about which scholars may differ. The safest thing might be to say that This is the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned it without details, as Ibn Kathir mentioned. But a lot of other things are mentioned sometimes in the tafsir without the detail. Allah mentions it in brief, but we are to look into it and research and try to discover. So Allahu A'lam, Allah is telling us there are two angels. Their names are Haroot and Maroot. They are in Babel and they are teaching magic. Bismillah. وَمَا أُنزِلَ عَلَى الْمَلَكَيْنِ بِبَابِلْ هَارُوتَ وَمَارُوتَ. By the way, other narrations mention that they were, when they stayed on earth and they were teaching magic, they were punished by being hanged from their feet. And you will find pictures online of them being hanged by their feet. And you will find stories also amongst the Jews about two fallen angels. So subhanallah, it's Allahu A'lam, subhana man ya'lam. وَمَا أُنزِلَ عَلَى الْمَلَكَيْنِ بِبَابِلْ هَارُوتَ وَمَارُوتَ وَمَا يُعَلِّمَانِ مِنْ أَحَدٍ حَتَّى يَقُولَا إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ فِتْنَةٌ فَلَا تَكْفُرْ. So now he's telling us how they teach magic. They do not teach anyone what has been given to them until they warn the person, we are a fitna, we are a test, we are a tribulation. Notice, they're still obedient to Allah. If they indeed were trying to misguide, they wouldn't say that. They're obeying. It seems they are a test. Allah made them a test. And Allah told them, warn them before you teach them anything. And then there's no blame upon them. The blame is upon the one who learned it. وَمَا يُعَلِّمَانِ مِنْ أَحَدٍ حَتَّى يَقُولَا إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ فِتْنَةٌ. We are a fitna, we're a test. فَلَا تَكْفُرْ. So do not disbelieve. But wait a minute, we're not talking about kufr, we're talking about magic, right? What are they teaching? The magic that was given to them? More evidence of the connection between magic and kufr, for the opinion of scholars who said that magic is kufr, right? وَمَا يُعَلِّمَانِ مِنْ أَحَدٍ حَتَّى يَقُولَا إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ فِتْنَةٌ فَلَا تَكْفُرْ. So do not disbelieve. If they continue and they want to learn, this is when they start teaching him the magic. This shows us, Wallahu A'lam, and this is what supports maybe the opinion of Imam al-Tabari and others, that it's not their fault. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made them a test and they are warning others. So there's no blame upon them. And there's no issue about how did Allah give it to them, teach them. How are the angels teaching kufr when they obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? They are a fitna. It's very clear. And they're telling them, فَلَا تَكْفُرْ. Do not disbelieve. So Allah is helping the believers. He's giving them indications so that they don't disbelieve and they do not follow these two angels. It's kind of similar to the issue of the Dajjal. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helps us. He told us through authentic narrations of the Prophet ﷺ about the characteristics of the Dajjal. So we know him, right? So we know the signs. And more than that, and easier than that, is that every believer will see that in between his eyes are the letters written separately. Kaf, Fa, Ra. Kafara. Right? The root word for disbelief. Kufr, kafara, in between his eyes. The believers will see this, regardless of whether it is really written between his eyes or not. Believers will see it. Allah is assisting the believers so that they are not misguided and dissuaded by such examples. right? In another narration, it will say kafir, all connected. He's a disbeliever. Do not be misguided. And similarly now, they are telling people, إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ فِتْنَةٌ. We are a test. Do not disbelieve. But then the ayah continues, فَيَتَعَلَّمُونَ مِنْهُمَا مَا يُفَرِّقُونَ بِهِ بَيْنَ الْمَرْءِ وَزَوْجِهِ. So they learn from them, from these two angels, that with which they separate between a man and his wife. Meaning, they said to them, do not disbelieve, we are a fitna. Whoever is trying to learn rejected that advice and said, we want to learn the magic, so they will teach at that point. They want to learn, so they will teach him that with which they would separate between a man and his wife. مَا يُفَرِّقُونَ بِهِ بَيْنَ الْمَرْءِ وَزَوْجِهِ. Magic is of many types, my brothers and sisters. And we talked last time about black magic being the worst magic. Magic whereby a person actually deals with the shayateen, the disbelievers of the jinn. And one of the worst examples of magic and uses or misuses, more accurately, of magic is to separate between a man and his wife. May Allah protect us. May Allah protect all Muslims from this. This is very serious. These are not games. Because if that happens, God forbid, it's something so sinister and so difficult to get over. And sometimes the line is blurred between reality and real practical reasons that may be the reason of discord between a man and his wife, as opposed to magic. But they will learn from Haroot and Maroot this evil, sinister magic with which they will separate between a man and his wife. And this is why in the authentic hadith, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us that Iblis will have his throne over water. Iblis, the leader of the shayateen, will have his throne over water, a body of water. And he will call on his assistants, his battalions of devils and demons that he sends out. And the closest to him are the ones that are most able to misguide people. So one of them will come and say to him, I did this and this, I did this and that, I dissuaded this person, I convinced him to do this sin or that. And the shaitan, Iblis, will tell him, you haven't done anything. This is not enough. And then one of them will come and say, I kept on whispering to him until I separated between him and his wife. So Iblis will say, yes, you are the one. You are the best one. He's the one he wants. Because this is one of the most dangerous things. Because if this family unit, if marriage, the institution of marriage is destroyed, this is precisely how you destroy a society. And by extension, the whole ummah. So the shayateen love nothing more than to separate between a man and his wife. They want to make the halal as difficult as possible and as rare as possible. And they want to make the haram as easy as possible and as widespread as possible. So this is the ultimate in terms of the work of the shayateen. This is why let every man be very careful, let every woman be very careful. Once you have that contract between you, the marriage contract, this is mithaq ghalidh. This is a very serious contract that binds you now. It's not a joke that you just say, I'm just going to divorce her. Over sometimes the pettiest of things, where he will divorce her or she will ask for divorce. None are happier at that point than the shayateen. And this is why the evil magicians today may do such sihr, such magic, to separate between spouses. Sometimes at the request of an evil person of the human beings, because she is jealous. Maybe that her sister, her own sister, got to marry a good man, so she might go to a magician in order to do this magic, sihr al-tafriq, in order to try to separate between them. And then what happens after that, brothers and sisters, is part of the supernatural. So, seeing things, the husband no longer sees his wife in the same way he used to see her before. Same with her, she doesn't see him the same way. God knows how he appears to her or she appears to him. And then there are difficulties, and maybe it breeds hatred, and they cannot even have marital relations, you name it. This is part of the sihr, subhanallah. Very, very serious. And this is why, this is one of the greatest crimes. And therefore, it is not difficult at all to connect it or possibly see why such a crime would be associated with kufr. But this is what the shayateen want, and this is what the evil magicians will do. فَيَتَعَلَّمُونَ مِنْهُمَا مَا يُفَرِّقُونَ بِهِ بَيْنَ الْمَرْءِ وَزَوْجِهِ. Of course, this is a long and complicated issue, but let me just say one thing, which is that, yes, many times there are practical reasons for the discord. There are very simple and easy to understand reasons for the discord. It shouldn't be the case that as soon as there's any kind of problem between you and your wife, you immediately say, oh, it's magic. No, this is not the way to do it. We know it's a reality, but if it is really magic, there are certain indications for that. One of the easy ones is that it is something that happens quite suddenly. So this is not something where you are your whole life or a lot of the time in your marriage there are difficulties, and now all of a sudden you think it is magic. If it's magic, it will be sudden. So maybe they are doing perfectly fine. They're living a happy life, and all of a sudden things change for the worse without a reason, an understandable and a logical reason for that. This is when we start to say and think, okay, maybe this is the result of magic. But if, God forbid, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make all our houses full of harmony and happiness and comfort, if for a long time there are issues between you and your wife, and you can see that there are logical and understandable reasons for that difficulty, then it's not necessarily magic. Then you need to deal with the practical issues at hand. But this exists, and it is one of the greatest crimes. فَيَتَعَلَّمُونَ مِنْهُمَا مَا يُفَرِّقُونَ بِهِ بَيْنَ الْمَرْءِ وَزَوْجِهِ وَمَا هُمْ بِضَارِّينَ بِهِ مِنْ أَحَدٍ إِلَّا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. And they will not harm anyone through this except by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So do not think for a second that this magic somehow is so powerful that it overpowers Allah. Nothing overpowers Allah. My brothers and sisters, only what Allah wills happens in this universe, whether that is good or whether that is evil. So here, if they harm anyone with that magic, it happened because Allah willed it to happen. Notice the phrase, willed it, decreed it through qadar. Not that He wants it. You need to differentiate between that which is kawni and qadari and that which is shar'i. Kawni and qadari, something which has to do with the qadar. Allah decreed it. Allah decrees many things because it's going to happen. So Allah has decreed it through qadar. But He doesn't want that to happen. He loves you and He loves everything that is good for you, and He wants what is best for you, and He commands you to do good and He forbids you from evil. And He hates and abhors that something hurt you or harm you. This is in terms of the shar'i, that which Allah wants, commands, prohibits. But in terms of a decree, a universal decree, in terms of qadar, Allah willed it to happen and thus it happened. Allah willed that this natural disaster happened, or this person died in a way that maybe they didn't want to. It was decreed through qadar. So وَمَا هُمْ بِضَارِّينَ بِهِ مِنْ أَحَدٍ إِلَّا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala willed it, then maybe that magic, yes, will harm the person. If Allah did not will it, no magic and nothing can overcome him. As in the famous hadith of Ibn Abbas, when the Prophet ﷺ taught him that if all of humanity and all of the jinn try to harm you with something that Allah has not decreed for you, they will not be able to. And this is much more powerful than magic. We're talking about the ins and the jinn. All of them cannot harm you if Allah has not willed it, and cannot do you good either if Allah has not willed it or decreed it. So it is all by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, teaching us to connect to Allah Azza wa Jal, to rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And even then, if someone is trying to harm you through black magic, they will not be able to. إِلَّا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. وَيَتَعَلَّمُونَ مَا يَضُرُّهُمْ وَلَا يَنْفَعُهُمْ. And they learn that which is harmful to them and does not benefit them. What they are learning is harmful and the most harmful. But when and where? وَيَتَعَلَّمُونَ مَا يَضُرُّهُمْ. One might say, what they're learning actually is benefiting them. The magicians who are doing this are benefiting from this in the dunya. They're getting a lot of money. They charge a lot of money for stuff like this. They're making their livelihood maybe through things like this. They are learning that which harms them. This is why some scholars said that which harms them in al-akhirah. مَا يَضُرُّهُمْ وَلَا يَنْفَعُهُمْ. Some of the mufassirin rightly said, مَا يَضُرُّهُمْ فِي دِينِهِمْ. They are learning that which harms them in their deen, because they are performing one of the greatest sins, destructive sins, as the Prophet ﷺ called it. He talked about 7 destructive sins. First he mentioned shirk, and then he mentioned sihr. So of course this destroys someone's deen. And we said it is kufr according to many scholars. وَيَتَعَلَّمُونَ مَا يَضُرُّهُمْ. But it also may harm them in the dunya. Because we know that the jinn, the demons, the disbelieving jinn, don't want good for you. They want to harm you. And even when human beings seek the assistance of the jinn, they will only increase them in difficulty. فَزَادُوهُمْ رَهَقًا, as in Surah Al-Jinn. So maybe it will harm them even in the dunya. وَيَتَعَلَّمُونَ مَا يَضُرُّهُمْ وَلَا يَنْفَعُهُمْ, and does not benefit them. Of course it doesn't benefit them in al-akhirah, because it may be a reason for them to be of the dwellers of the hellfire. وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. On the other hand, look at, we might ask ourselves, وَيَتَعَلَّمُونَ مَا يَضُرُّهُمْ وَلَا يَنْفَعُهُم. If they're learning that which harms them, it definitely does not benefit them. Maybe, wallahu a'lam, the reason it is being mentioned this way is because there are 2 levels. You have to look at it in terms of 2 levels. وَيَتَعَلَّمُونَ مَا يَضُرُّهُمْ. They're learning that which harms them. Technically, you should not be learning that which doesn't benefit you in the first place. As in the famous saying, which sometimes is attributed to the Prophet ﷺ, but it is weak, wallahu a'lam, when he said, عِلْمٌ لَا يَنْفَعْ وَجَهْلٌ لَا يَضُرُّ. And that seemed to have spawned the proverb, عِلْمٌ لَا يَنْفَعْ وَجَهْلٌ بِهِ لَا يَضُرُّ. A knowledge of something that doesn't benefit, and an ignorance of which is not harmful. So a lot of things that we talk about today is knowledge that doesn't benefit, or let's call it information that doesn't benefit. And if I don't know this, if I'm ignorant of it, it will not be harmful of me. So why should you learn it in the first place? So in their case, not only are they learning that which doesn't benefit them, which is problematic enough, they're learning that which harms them. وَيَتَعَلَّمُونَ مَا يَضُرُّهُمْ وَلَا يَنْفَعُهُمْ. So it's enough of, let's call it a waste of time, to be learning that which will not benefit you. And if you don't know about it, it won't harm you. That's the case with a lot of things that people are learning about and reading about today, unfortunately. وَلَقَدْ عَلِمُوا لَمَنِ اشْتَرَاهُ مَا لَهُ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنْ خَلَاقٍ. And they know, they are certain, that whoever takes this, the magic that they are being taught, that whoever exchanges the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this magic that they are being taught, مَا لَهُ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنْ خَلَاقٍ. They will have no khalaq in al-akhirah, in the hereafter. And khalaq here, most correct opinion is that it is nasib, a portion. They won't have a portion or a share in al-akhirah because of the sin of doing this magic, learning it first of all, teaching it, and then practicing it. They know who, the ones who are learning it, the ones who replaced the book of Allah with it, al-Yahud, and anyone else who does so. وَلَقَدْ عَلِمُوا لَمَنِ اشْتَرَاهُ مَا لَهُ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنْ خَلَاقٍ. So they know what they're doing is wrong, and yet they are doing this. وَلَبِئْسَ مَا شَرَوْا بِهِ أَنفُسَهُمْ. And wretched is that for which they sold themselves. So they sold themselves and their deen and the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the magic of these demons from the time of Sulaiman alayhi salam. وَلَبِئْسَ مَا شَرَوْا بِهِ أَنفُسَهُمْ لَوْ كَانُوا يَعْلَمُونَ. If only they knew. One may ask, and Al-Imam al-Tabari mentions this, in the first phrase, وَلَقَدْ عَلِمُوا. They know, they are certain. لَمَنِ اشْتَرَاهُ مَا لَهُ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنْ خَلَقٍ. And then he says, وَلَبِئْسَ مَا شَرَوْا بِهِ أَنفُسَهُمْ لَوْ كَانُوا يَعْلَمُونَ. If they only knew. Is there an apparent contradiction between the first, they know, and the second, if only they knew? In the first one, it seems, wallahu a'lam, they know that whoever replaces the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and what He has given with magic and what the shayateen are teaching, that they will have no portion in al-akhirah. And by the way, these are more proofs that it is kufr, because they will have no portion in al-akhirah. They will have no share in al-akhirah. They know that this will be the consequence, but yet they're still doing it. They know how egregious it is. They're still doing it. So that's why afterwards he says, وَلَبِئْسَ مَا شَرَوْا بِهِ أَنفُسَهُمْ. And wretched is that for which they sold themselves. If only they knew. So it seems, wallahu a'lam, they know it is bad, they know what the consequence will be, but they don't realize how evil it is and how bad it is, that this is the worst thing that you can do. If they did, they wouldn't have done it. So Allah is telling us, they know it's evil, they're not ignorant of it. They know it's evil, they know the one who does this will not have a share in al-akhirah. We talked about how the Old Testament also prohibits magic and sorcery. Allah prohibited the Israelites from engaging in witchcraft and necromancy, prohibiting them from being like the other nations. So they know. They know it's evil, yet they're doing it because they don't know the extent of its evil. If they truly knew what the consequences will be later on, they wouldn't have done it. So this might be, wallahu a'lam, the reason why in the first one he says, وَلَقَدْ عَلِمُوا, they know. And in the last one he says, لَوْ كَانُوا يَعْلَمُونَ. If only they knew. Because if they truly and genuinely knew that this is the worst thing that you can do, the worst barter or transaction, where you replace that which comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with that which the demons are teaching to the detriment of humanity. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak ala nabiyyina Muhammad. Any questions or comments? Yes, brother.
Any good magic?
All magic is wrong and is a sin. And we may say is kufr, especially if it involves the shayateen. Some have asked that question, which is, what if you are doing magic in order to release and undo the evil magic? And this is also a sin, wallahu ta'ala a'lam. This is also a sin. Why? Number one, the correct way to undo the magic is reliance on Allah and proper ruqyah. Proper ruqyah, Quran. Ruqyah, of course, the best ruqyah is Quran. And doing adhkar. And other things that are mentioned usually by people who have experience in this field. Because we see, wallahu a'lam, that a lot of this is not clearly delineated in the Quran and the Sunnah. So it's kind of an experimental science, in the sense that people who do ruqyah, okay, scholars, mashayikh who do ruqyah, it's something that kind of happens with trial and error, and they begin to gain experience, kind of like some of the sciences today. As long as it doesn't go against something clearly delineated in the Quran and the Sunnah, then it would be okay. So they might tell you that they have tried this ayah, and this ayah is powerful against, let's say, the issue of exorcism, when the jinn may enter the body of a human being. This ayah especially is a favorite for ruqyah. وَاتَّبَعُوا مَا تَتْلُو الشَّيَاطِينَ عَلَى مُلْكِ سُلَيْمَانَ. Absolutely. Okay, so scholars who have tried it say that this ayah just destroys them. Subhanallah. So this is the proper way to deal with magic and demons and so on, not by more magic. Furthermore, it may also be, wallahu a'lam, it is like alcohol, it's addictive. You may start by trying to do it for a good purpose, as you said, good magic, to undo evil magic, and then it leads to other things. So, all magic is a sin, wallahu ta'ala a'lam.
All magic is kufur.
According to, like I said last time, I explained it in detail. I don't know if you were there, brother. There's a difference of opinion, okay? And interestingly enough, you'll find different people judging it differently. So when Imam al-Nawawi mentions it, he says very clearly that the majority say it's not kufr. And this is based on the opinion of the Hanafis, the Hanbalis and the Shafi'is. And Imam al-Shafi'i's opinion is, we ask the magician, how do you perform this magic? If there is kufr in it, we say it is kufr. The Malikis were very strict, and they considered it kufr. All kufr. Because it seems, wallahu a'lam, they are talking specifically about black magic, the worst magic, which can only be done through the assistance of the shayateen. And that type of magic is clearly kufr, because the only way to do it is to do things that constitute kufr and magnify others besides Allah, especially these shayateen. And they will request you to do things that are the worst of kufr in order to help you. So the Malikis were strict about it, and they considered it all kufr. And many other scholars considered it all kufr, based on the authentic hadith I mentioned to you a little while ago about the 7 destructive sins, and ultimately this ayah itself, the ultimate evidence that magic is kufr, this ayah. So you'll find these different opinions. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. Yes, Sheikh.
Punishment for the one who is doing this around magic, especially the one who probably.
That is evidence as well, that the sahir is to be killed, right? The magician is to be killed. This was the opinion of Umar ibn al-Khattab, Uthman, Hafsa bint Umar, Jundab ibn Abdullah, and others. This was their opinion. This is why I'm telling you, it's a very strong opinion. The scholars who said it is kufr, Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. But Imam al-Nawawi mentions the opinion of al-Shafi'i and Hanafis and the...
Sayyidina Umar is before those imams.
Agreed, brother. Agreed. The reason possibly others said it is not all kufr, like I said, it seems, wallahu a'lam, it's because of the type of magic. So, if you say black magic that can only be performed through the shayateen, the demons, this seems to be clearly kufr. Possibly, the ones who said it is not kufr are talking about a lower level of magic, where you are not dealing with shayateen, where you are dealing with certain substances and you are mixing things and things of that nature, you see. So possibly the difference of opinion may be a consequence of looking at the type of magic. Which type of magic are you talking about? Are you talking about black magic, the worst type? Or something on a lower level? Wallahu ta'ala a'lam.
Kind of practicing Muslim get impacted by magic. Someone says al-Baqarah.
Of course, they can. They can if Allah decreed it. But again, they have a much better chance of not being impacted. Of course, they have a much better chance. Can they? Yes, theoretically it's possible, and that would be ibtila, a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they would do everything they can through the proper ruqyah for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to heal them. Allahu a'lam.
I think there was a magic also done to the Prophet.
Sorry, brother?
There was a magic.
Of course. It was done to the Prophet ﷺ. Mind you, there, things would happen to him. Again, they give this as an example of takheel, meaning that he sees things that are not there. He does maybe things that he doesn't know he's doing, or the opposite. Yes, of course, he was under that magic, and he implored Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, beseeched Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to respond to his dua and to clarify to him what is this that has been done to him. And then he tells Aisha radiallahu anha, "Oh Aisha, have you not seen that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah aftani fima staftaytuh." Allah essentially answered him and told him what exactly was wrong with him, and they understood that it was the magic. Yeah, well, we're in Q&A now, brother. Barakallah feek. Extra time, no? And then subhanallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cured him. Absolutely.
The magic nowadays is very famous.
That magic, that seems to be something else. Those are illusions, wallahu a'lam. Those are like illusions and trickery in a way that it's not really affecting you. You're just not seeing what they're doing, right? So I have this bottle in front of me and I'm doing something behind it and you can't see it. It's not that I have somehow affected you such that you are seeing something different. These are just illusions and trickery. If I just now take you and put you over here instead of in front, you'll see exactly what I'm doing, you see. So this is, loosely called magic. Wallahu a'lam. Wa iyyakum, barakallahu feek.